Hey guys, it's Stephanie here with my March wrap up. I read 8 books in March, which I think is the most I've read in a month so far this year. So I thought that was pretty good. So the first book I finished this month was Stephen King's It. Notice I said finished, not read, because I did not read this in a month. This is like 1,000 pages. Are you kidding me? I did not read that. And since I already did a full review of this book, I am not gonna talk about it here on my wrap up. Instead, I will link the video for the review down below. So Stephen King's It was like absolutely crazy and insane. So after I finished reading that, I wanted something a little lighter. So I picked up Sherry Goldhagen's In Some Other World Maybe. It's a contemporary novel and it was just what the doctor ordered. I really liked it. I would totally recommend it. And if you don't know what it's about, In Some Other World Maybe it starts out with 6 teenagers in different cities in the US. And they have one thing in common, and that is on the same day in the spring of 1992, they go see the same movie. And that movie was a film adaptation of a fictional comic book series in the book called Eons and Empires. And then the book follows them over the next 2 decades as they kind of go in and out of each other's lives and the role that the comic book series plays in their lives throughout the next 2 decades. So there was a lot I liked about this book. Obviously, this book deals a lot with relationships. There is a lot of mentioning of the comic book series. And the comic book series deals a lot with parallel universes. And we see this in the main story when we see characters making decisions in their relationships and the consequences that come with those decisions. And so we see that when a character is about to say something or do something, the book will say, an example like, in some other world, maybe he tells her he loves her. And maybe in some other world, she says it back. And so it's always that mention of parallel universes, of the what if, and choosing not to, and choosing to do it, and the things that come with us taking a certain road or making a certain decision. So that was something I really liked about this book. So book number 3 was A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. And this book is about a lady named Ruth who lives in the Pacific Northwest in the United States, and one day she's walking along the beach and she finds a Ziploc bag with a Hello Kitty lunchbox. So she opens up the bag, opens up the lunchbox, and she finds a diary inside. So as she's reading the diary, she learns that it belongs to a 15-year-old girl named Nao who lives in Japan. And obviously Nao is sharing intimate details about her life, about the way she is bullied at school, about the issues with her family, and even shares that when she's finished making all the entries in the diary that she wants to end her life. And so Ruth becomes very obsessed with this diary and trying to help and figure out what happened to Nao. And she is not sure if the diary came because of the tsunami in 2011 in Japan, and she's trying to Google this girl and find out what happened. There's no dates on the entries, and so it becomes this obsessive race to try to save Nao. So there was a lot I liked about this book. It had great writing, it had great memorable characters. As I was reading it, I definitely looked forward to Nao's chapters a lot more than I did Ruth's. And to be completely honest, a lot of the stuff that they started talking about might have just gone over my head. They started talking about quantum mechanics and nonlinear time theories and all this kind of stuff. It was just way above me. But other than that, and the 4th book I listened to as an audiobook, and that was In the Woods by Tana French. I keep wanting to say Into the Woods, but it's not. That's the musical. In the Woods. In the Woods by Tana French. And this is the first book in the Dublin Murder Squad series, and I absolutely loved this book. It was amazing. It was written well. It had great characters. There was great chemistry between the first 2 characters. And it just got crazy. I was listening to it as an audiobook, and I was at work and I was pacing back and forth when it got to the end, freaking out about what was gonna happen. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is gonna happen? I'm going to be vaguely spoilery for a minute and just say that you might not enjoy this book if you're someone who needs all the loose ends tied up in a little bow. Now, this is the start of a series, but just the way that this series looks like it's going to be, where it's focused on a different person in the Dublin Murder Squad, I am not holding my breath that they are going to tie any loose ends from the first book. If they do, be happy with it, but if they don't, with the way it's written, I'm totally fine with it. So just letting you know. This month I also read Of Human Bondage by W. Somerset Maugham. I read this as a buddy read with Kate Howe, and again, I did a full review on this book, so I'm not going to talk about it here, but I'll leave a link down below. And then I read High Fidelity by Nick Hornby. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. There was a lot I liked about it, I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked Rob's character, I liked that he is pop culture obsessed and makes lists. I liked that the novel ended up being about self-discovery, and he was very mature and reflective about his relationships, making observations about how he reacts in certain situations and how that's kind of worked out for him so far. He was just a little too whiny for me, and I just got annoyed with him too much. So, it was a I liked it kind of a book. And probably the worst read of this month was Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. I don't read a lot of YA. This was what my book club picked last month, and this book just reminded me of all the reasons I don't read YA anymore. It was just trope city. I hated it. I didn't finish it. I gave it 1 star. There was just so much wrong with it, and the villains were stupid. They need to go back to the villain school of how to get things that you want with the least amount of risk. They were just idiots. Like, I mean, I would be a better villain. I mean, I could. I'm a Slytherin after all, right? And then ending the month on a high note, I listened to Burial Rites by Hannah Kent as an audiobook, and I absolutely loved it. It was an amazing read. The writing was beautiful, it was atmospheric, I loved all the characters, and I'm basically not going to add anything new to the conversation you haven't heard already. I'm just basically going to gush about it. It was great. I will say, the only people who might not enjoy this book are people who probably like faster paced or plot driven books. This was definitely a character driven book. But if you like character driven books, check this one out. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. It was great. Great way to end the month. And that's all I have for you today, guys. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.